Meirav Zur. What a pleasure to talk to this young woman. Fertility is a huge issue, not only in our country but all over the world. And she has a theater background. So what did she do? She decided to turn this issue of fertility that she's experiencing into a one-person play performance. In it, she talks about different characters in their life, the health teacher in school, the doctors involved, and very very amusing. Still tells a great story. The whole process is how she created the play it's very fascinating to me. She had a 10 or 12 years of acting, producing and directing before that, but she just decided to turn this into like I say, a one person show. And there's clips of it on YouTube. I'll have lots of links here. How discipline is used in acting and in directing is very interesting take that she has. I really appreciate it. Very untypical of what I hear. But great conversation with Meirav Zur. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Start talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this, Meirav. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. So is fertility a very big issue in our country?
Yes.
I have friends that are trying, and then I have other friends that can't stop having kids.
And then you probably have some other friends in between who aren't talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yes, it's
it really
definitely a
starts
thing.
it questions masculinity and femininity, and it really can cause some great depression.
Yes. It questions everything. It's you know, it it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your age is, what your knowledge is, what your race is, what your religion. Nothing. Like it's insane. And oddly enough, no one's really talking about it either. So that's on top of that. That's not great. So yeah, another reason why I'm here.
Yeah, and I was shocked at the cost.
Yes.
I mean, thousands
Yeah.
of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, the cost is insane. It is not in the U.S. By the way.
Right.
There are countries that do cover treatment,
Ah.
but yeah, to have that, to have all the physical and emotional, craziness going, and on top of that, the financial strain, it's insane.
So what did you decide to do is to turn it around and make a comedy out of it to make people laugh, make it at least a little bit light, but still drill in the seriousness of it?
Yeah, it was actually I didn't really want to turn it around. It started with the way that I was first able to talk about my own experiences because I
Mm.
was experiencing all this for years. in parallel to my everyday, including my profession, which happened to be in theater and acting. But I didn't talk about that part with anybody. And so the first time I decided that I could and maybe should, I decided to do that in front of some friends, but I didn't know how. So I just invited them over to my house one night and kind of performed it all to them through, like, comedy and silly songs and characters and whatnot. And then that kind of developed into a whole show.
Okay, so I gotta unwrap this a bit. So at what point did you receive the inspiration to turn this into a performing art? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, it didn't happen by itself. So I perform, professionally. I'm an actor, producer, writer, director. I've been creating and writing and producing and performing in my own stuff for years.
Hmm.
My own stuff, meaning my own creations, but it was never about me. It was all fictitious characters, of course. But because I had this, I guess, personal issue going on and I didn't know how to talk about it, and then I decided I should and maybe could. I just didn't know how to do it. I just thought, wow, this thing is just so heavy, and I don't want, the people that I do share it with, I don't want them to pity me, or,
Mm.
I don't want any, like, bad feelings. I just want them to know, but I want them to know that it's okay to know, and, whatever. And, of course, at the time I thought I was, like, the only one in the world going through this. So, like, I was
Mm.
like, let me tell you how I'm a freak of nature. But I wanted to tell it to them in, in a kind of an accessible way, I guess, the way that they wouldn't think it was too horrible or weird. And so I said, okay, well, yeah, I could do that with humor. It's just like, comedy is that you can take something really harsh, but present it in such a lovely way that you can accept that information now. It's easier to digest. And I guess that was the way that I was able to kind of to talk about it, first of all, and also during, while I was experiencing it. My husband and I would, we'd joke every now and then, because it was like the only way. It was either crying or laughing about it. That was it. So yeah, with my friends, it was also a way to do that. And I didn't think it would go beyond that night, actually, but they had started suddenly talking about their own things, and
Hmm.
then I said, wait a minute, there's something here. There's a lot that people aren't talking about, that they're all experiencing some similar stuff. What's going on here? And they urged me to actually to go ahead and pursue it, and make a show out of it, which I was sure was going to be a one night only event, because I was like, who would want to come listen to me talk about, my vagina and and all the problems and whatever. People that don't know me wouldn't care. But then it kind of, that night, that was, I thought, was a one night, people came up to me afterwards and they were like, that's my story. Oh my God, that's my daughter's story. Oh my God, we never really knew. And thank you. And then I said, okay, there's something even bigger here. And it just kind of expanded from there.
Hmm. And at any point during the creation of this, did you feel that a particular joke or a particular scene went too far and you had to pull it back? Did that ever happen?
Um, Yes, I never pulled it back, but
Good for
I
you.
mean, I did it. But at first I thought, wow, this is, I don't know if this is going to be okay, or, or like the way that it was staged. But I just said, I'm just going to do it, because I'll see what happens, I'll see how the audience takes it. But there was never too much shock, or, or booing or anything like that. It was just, it's in your face, and it's like, but it's also funny. Not every second is a funny moment. There are also some, more heartfelt moments, and, some things, like, it's kind of like, because it's a show after all. It's not just constant stand up. But it's, it works in that way. And I think that's how it is. That's how life is. It's not always one, happy, glossy, marshmallowy thing. It's also, it's also the muck, and it's also the bad, and it's also the sad and the happy. And so it worked out that way. But yeah, I didn't take back anything, because I said, this is how it's going to be. And if it works, the only reason I would scale it back is if the joke didn't work,
Right.
if it didn't get the laugh. But to offend or not offend, I think in comedy you can't really limit yourself too much because then it just won't be it won't do what it's supposed to do.
Mm. Yeah, because in order to talk about fertility, we have to talk about sex. And, some people are
Yep.
comfortable with that, some people are not. And one of your particular characters is like this kind of Southern football coach who won't
Yep.
even say the word sex. He keeps on
Yep.
spelling it. I mean, it's
Yes.
outrageous. And it's kind of one of those things where you're not sure if you should laugh because it's so kind of true. This is exactly what would happen, and they keep
Yes.
on saying you're not going to get pregnant or an STD. I mean, it's just so I can't help but use the word ridiculous because um,
Yeah.
just say sex, man, dude,
Yes.
whoever you are,
That
coach.
that guy was actually my high school sex ed teacher, who was also my coach. He was that's how it was. He was my gym coach, and all the I mean the whole show is it's all true. All the characters I do are actual people that I've met along the way, and it's all true. So that character is my gym coach. The only difference from what you see on stage and the real thing was that he was a man, and I can't be a man, but that's it. That's him. It was the accent and the way that he was very embarrassed about the task that he was given to teach us sex ed. He was only, it seemed like he was just walking around the whole time thinking I was only supposed to do sports,
Right.
but he ended up doing that, and that's like everyone that I've met, their sex ed when they were growing up, it was basically like that. We aren't really going to talk about it, but we are, but we're not. Just don't do it. And so, you end up with this whole, generations of misinformed people.
And I'm going to assume the gynecologist was French.
Uh, Israeli.
Israeli.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
very sarcastic. Well, not really, but kind of facetious, very nice, but still
Yeah,
kind of
just wanted to be a friend, but
yes.
yeah, this is not really good information.
Right, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I just kinda tried to keep it light,
Yep.
but again, from true inspiration from you.
Yeah, yeah, same. That was our fertility doctor. Really awesome man, very nice. Knew what he was doing, but it was just a funny little thing that I noticed that I was like, everything to him is like not a big deal. It's okay. It'll be okay.
Mm,
We'll do
mm.
it. We'll do it. But it is, all this stuff that you have to do. It is quite a big deal, So yeah, I wanted to put that in there also that um it's a lot, but it can be looked at with a comedic lens, maybe as a way to just, like I said, it's laugh or cry, so might as well laugh when you can.
What's the best thing a friend can do, or say or support when they know friends are going through fertility issues?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of people that do and have said the wrong
Mm,
thing. I
mm,
have a whole song in my show about what not to say because there are a lot of like these tactless, well-meaning but tactless statements. But I think the best thing is for people to be there, and if they want to say something, they can just say that they are there. Whenever the person that needs, a shoulder to cry on or someone to vent to, they're there. If they need something, if they need to just, be in the same room in silence with them, if they need to like, you know, I don't know, go get ice cream with them, whatever it is,
mm,
just to be there because it's kind of like this natural reflex as humans that we have that we want to fix. So you tell me a problem, I immediately want to fix.
mm.
Let me tell you my advice. Let me tell you my thing. And it's not always necessary. It's also very helpful and sometimes more helpful if you're just there. You're just saying, okay, you're heard.
Right, and trying to give advice like, "Did you try wearing 3 pairs of socks or something?" You should
Yep.
probably avoid that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. One of the many things yeah, that I've been told, and like I said, I made a whole song of it, and I still didn't put in all the comments because it's just so there's so many, and when you hear them all together, it's like wow, that is kind of ridiculous. And of course, they didn't mean wrong. They
Of
meant
course.
well, but
Yeah.
yeah.
How important are arts and theater in education?
I think arts and theater are important in life,
Hmm.
much more than they're given credit for. Of course, that's my field and kind of my niche, and I'm a theater nerd and everything. So of course I'll say that, and maybe it's a bit biased, but I do firmly believe that people need to have art and theater in their lives and learn it and be taught that whole subject and experience it, even if they're never ever planning on going into it professionally, because there's so much to learn through theater,
Hmm.
so much. And most of it is just like parallel to real life in so many ways. You learn about people and how humans work and empathy and working together, and you learn about, how to go with the flow in life. It's just so much that can be taught, in theater, beyond the actual show or play or content you're working on.
Right.
It's way beyond that. So I think it's very important. I think it's very sad that the arts are always the first to be cut and whatever it is, and the
Mm.
first to, to suffer any kind of setback. But I think they're very important.
Yeah, I we didn't have one when I was in high school, but um, I just noticed in college, like of my friends who did do it, all of them would say it's great, and plus, hey, there's always a lot of women in there, so that was
Yep,
always that was always the
it's
big
true.
attraction.
It's true. Always the attraction for men is to get there, because it's, a lot of women go to it, and I think it's a great place also of acceptance.
Mm,
You usually end up getting in a group a lot of different types of people,
right.
and because of the work you do, you just accept people as they are because you're working together and you have to, and that in itself is a lesson, and it's a great way of meeting different people. But yeah, I think just as sports are really important for also many different ways besides the actual sport that's being played, teamwork and knowing how to win and lose, and coaching and being coached, and besides the actual game strategy,
Hmm.
there's so much in that that's important for people. I think it's the same, if not more, even for theater.
Yeah, I remember taking a theater class in college, and if there's so many opportunities there, even if you don't feel that you're a skilled actor, there's still set design, there's still direction, and there's still lights, and there's so many things that are gathered around the theater experience. It's not necessarily if you stage fright, I don't think you should
Yeah.
shy away from it. There's so many other things you could do.
Yeah, 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 totally. And that's also a huge thing. Every person can contribute,
Right.
really, with every aspect. So it's just great. And I think it's, to get involved in that, the younger, the better, because you can experience it in so many different ways. So yeah, I love it.
Did you start acting and then move into direction and producing and writing?
I actually started out as an actor. I was always like a creative type, and I always had, art was always my thing, but kind of like more a hobby, I guess. I never thought that that was my profession. But through necessity, I became all these other things,
Hmm.
because I started acting. And as an actor, usually, um, when and where I started that, the typical route is to get an agent, and the agent gets you auditions, which are the potential
Oof.
work if you pass the audition. And I thought that that was such a, like, kind of long-winded way to get to what I wanted to do, and so I decided to create my own opportunities. And I wrote a play, and I directed it, and through necessity, I created the costumes, and I essentially created a whole theater like that, because that first show went well, and so I created another one and another one, and I got other actors and arts professionals involved, and it was just great because it was a way for me to kind of express what I wanted to express, and also do what I love to do, and also get to meet fabulous people, and get to work with amazing people
Hmm.
without having to wait on someone else to organize that for me. So yeah, that was how that worked.
Is auditioning as miserable as it seems?
It's kind of like a perspective issue because for many it seems very miserable because it's
Mm,
like, oh, it's all not dependent on me, and even if I'm talented or whatever. But going in with that mindset is not great. I love to go in with the mindset that I'm doing a little tiny show.
mm.
So it's like, that's my performance. It may be that one time only. It may be that it's the beginning, or there'll be a sequel or whatever. But um, you know, if you go knowing that it's not really that, it's not all dependent on that. There's so many different considerations if you get that role or not. And I learned that much more clearly when I became, part of the other side of the table. So I saw, wow, there's so many other considerations. So it's not really, wow, how talented that person is, or if they nailed that audition or not. It's so many other factors. So I, I think it's really good to put that into perspective going into auditions, that it's not, the end all of your worth. So that's an important way to think about it.
Because it's very humbling, right? I mean, you
Yes.
hear about thousands, right? And they take 1 or 2 and
Yes. Yeah, and usually, there have been many auditions that I was in at beginning, at least when I'd go to auditions for, let's say, commercials. They usually look for a certain type of person,
mm,
and you're going in line and you're in a room with a bunch of people that pretty much look exactly like you,
wow.
and it's crazy.
I noticed that today when I see a spokesperson and I think to myself, okay, this is the person that that company chose. I think about the AT&T commercials. I think about,
Yep.
I think about the new gambling, one of the gambling ones. And I think, okay, wow. I mean, I wonder how it took months. It took okay, this is what they want the image to be. And they're there
Yeah.
for a long time. They're there for a long time.
Yes.
And, not two one way and not two the other way and not two it's just carefully crafted in the way they speak and
Yeah.
the way they look and the way they dress and the way they present
Completely.
themselves. It's all crafted.
Yeah. Completely. And it's kind of an art in itself.
Mm, yeah, very interesting. So when you had been acting and you'd been working and then the whole fertility thing came up. Did you get pushback from your husband and from your family about this topic?
So I've been in my profession for years. I think it was like about 11 or 12 years before I
Wow.
decided to do the fertility related show. My husband, the whole time we were going through it, wanted me to talk about it with people, but I
Hmm,
didn't want to, and I made him not talk about it either because I was like, nope,
interesting.
no one, we're not going to be the freaks of nature here. We're going to not talk about it. And then when I finally decided to talk about it that night that I had with my friends, I told him that I had friends coming over and I was doing something, but he was to stay in another room and not come out. And just whatever. And at the end of the night, he did end up hearing a little bit of it. He couldn't hear it clearly from the other room, but he said I
Wow.
heard a little bit of it. He was just so proud, and he's been super supportive ever since, and he's just all for it. And my family essentially knew all the bits and pieces of my experiences when they saw the show. And so yeah, but they were all supportive. The majority, the reaction was like, wow, there's so much we didn't know. And I think that's the main reaction that a lot of people come up with, because they're like, wow, and I thought I knew it. My sister's going through that, and I thought I knew. My daughter's going through that, but we never really knew,
Mm,
because a lot of people do know. They know the buzzwords: infertility, IVF. They know that, but they don't really know what that means. They don't know the ins and outs of the emotional roller coaster and the everyday angst, and it's so much that people don't really know, because it's an all encompassing experience
mm,
that's not great, to put it mildly.
right.
So I think that's an important aspect, that people understand what actually that entails.
So why didn't you want your husband to hear kind of the first beta, the first kind of, draft of
um
this?
well, because I don't know, and I just first of all, that night was just for like my girlfriends, so I
I see.
didn't want them to feel kind of weird that all of a sudden this guy was
Ah,
there.
ah.
And secondly, I thought that it would be, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of odd.
Hmm.
I think the first time he actually saw it was at the premiere.
Wow.
Um, and he was there, and it was just, and it was funny because, I mean, he loved it. He's, super supportive, and he was great. And the thing I remember was that he was like, that part where you did about whatever, I was in that room with you and I don't remember it that way. And that was also funny because it's like, we were both essentially experiencing this, but every person has their own perspective of it. So there were things that, these little nuances that didn't really bother him, but to me, I made this whole thing out of it. It's this, that was, that changed my whole day that day, so yeah, so that was funny.
Had this been the first kind of autobiographical, pursuit, theater pursuit?
Yeah, this was the first time, first of all, that I did a solo show,
Hmm.
because all of my other productions, I had other actors with me, on stage. And this was the first time that I was by myself, and it was the first time that it was about me. So, yeah.
And why solo? Why not have others involved?
um, I think it was just, I wanted to get the story out, and I wanted it very blunt, and I think I just said, if I'm going to do it, it's going to be all of me. And it's going
Hmm.
to be all of me for everything. I'll do my perspective on me and my perspective on the other characters as I saw them. And I just wanted to show my story and tell it as it is. And the production itself also, in terms of, the look and the styling, it's
Hmm.
very like bare bones on purpose. It's just, I want to tell you the story that because your friends are going through it, your family's going through it, and you need to know really what that means. And, at first I wanted it to be, okay, this is me, I'll just tell you how it is. But, when it became an actual show, and I knew it's going to hit a nerve with more people, I just wanted it to be just that.
Wow. And when you're the creativity in creating a play, Meirav, like, are you storyboarding? Are you how is that? What are the mechanics of that?
A
It's
lot of
fascinating to me.
crazy brain waves.
Really?
Yeah, it's so I that night that I first, baited it with my friends, until the premiere, it was about a year of development.
Wow.
So I worked, I rewrote a lot of stuff, obviously, and I worked with a dramaturg, which is, kind of like um, you know, it's kind of like, if the writing is the dress, then the dramaturg is that belt that kind of like tightens it up and makes it look, the way it needs to look. So I worked with the dramaturg and, and a stylist to make it like the look that what we wanted. So I was fortunate to work with them because it kind of helped me get to tell the story the way I wanted to tell it, but not me sitting and just blabbing for an hour.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to mix that up. And with my experience with other productions, I knew I wanted it kind of a multimedia. So, because if I was in the audience, I wanted to be interested in watching it. So I kept that in mind. So I said, okay, I want a little song here, and this one I'll tell, but I'll tell it maybe with like a prop, and this part I'll tell with like a, me sitting here, or, whatever. So that's kind of how it came out to be. So yeah, a lot of sketching out and a lot of rewriting and doodling and Xing and reprinting. Yeah.
Wow. And, I use the term beta. Is that correct? Like when you're rough draft? That's like software term.
No,
That's what
yeah, it's called, yeah. I mean, you can call it different things. I like beta. I think I'm gonna adopt it because
well,
I like it. But yeah, it's so I usually call it like a pilot,
a pilot,
because it's
of course.
kind of like a pilot show, even though it wasn't really meant to be. I just kind of it was kind of this, get together. It wasn't even supposed to be a show, but
Mm,
I was in front of a group and I was speaking,
performing,
but
yeah.
it wasn't going to be. I didn't think it was going to be anything,
I see.
and I think that's part of also kind of like the theater quality of life. Like I didn't really. think it was going to be something, but it kind of has a life of its own now, and it became like this whole journey.
Hmm.
So yeah.
The other term you used was dramaturg.
Yes, dramaturg. Isn't that funny?
TURG.
Yes.
Okay, I'm very unfamiliar. So it's people that kind of structure scripts and
They kind of help you. First of all, they give you that little mirror and that lens to look back at what you wrote and kind of redefine and kind of sharpen it. So it's like, okay, what did you mean to say here? Maybe it should be this way. It's kind of like
hmm,
a director before a director comes in a way, of the written word. And dramaturgs are involved with most of the well-known features that you know of,
wow.
movies and plays. Dramaturgs are usually involved at some point or another, just to kind of help, kind of like an editor in a way.
So when Quentin Tarantino writes a script, does he get one of these dramaturgs?
Um, I don't know if about him, but I'm sure that another pair of eyes
Huh,
I'm sure that
of
another pair of eyes
course.
sees someone's script, whether it's a friend or a professional dramaturg. I'm sure, because it's always good to run it by someone, and eventually it will. I mean, even scripts that may have not gone through, and I've had scripts I didn't always run through a dramaturg, but even my scripts, through rehearsals, you kind of shape it up, and when
Hmm.
you hear it spoken, you're like, oh wait, that's not how it should, or that one's funny, let's put it in, or so that always happens. But that's kind of like also in the natural evolution of productions, which I love. Like, from the idea until the stage, there's so much that changes and evolves.
And when you're dealing it not in a single show, but with many actors, and they kind of take it upon themselves to make changes to scripts and things like that, what happens there? I mean, is that uh, you hear about these kinds of incidents? Is that welcomed?
Um, I think it depends on the people involved.
Mm,
There are some directors that I've heard of that, it's my way or the
that's right.
highway.
Yeah.
There are some scripts that are well-known scripts. If a production wanted to do it, they are, you know, by law obligated to go according to those words and can't change
Wow.
one. That's just, in the copyright. But other writers, they're more flexible. It depends. With my stuff, I always love to be flexible with my work, because stuff comes up in rehearsals. If it's good, why not use it?
Hmm.
Why constrain yourself to that if it can become better?
And again, forgive me for these kind of questions. I know nothing about this, but like
No, no problem.
when like lighting happens or when like certain cues happen and stage needs to be reset and everything, that's all put in there and it's all guided and it's all rehearsed and the people know what to do given the certain cues. It's so orchestral to me.
Yes and no. So, the what I love most about theater, live theater, and this doesn't happen, on screen, which I love screen stuff too, but in theater specifically, um, because even as orchestrated and scripted as you get, there can still be things that happen that are unexpected. And so, the art of improvisation, which is an art of its own,
Mm.
is such a good skill, and I love tapping into it, because it's just things happen and you have to adjust because the show must go on. You have to, you can't just stay there and be like, oh well, that guy's shoe fell off, I don't know what to do now.
Right.
So instead, use it, go along with it, because and it makes for, it's wild, it just makes it alive, it makes it so much more special. So it's a great thing. So even if things are rehearsed, which they usually are, a lot of things happen that are not rehearsed. And Inconceivable, by the way, in the show that I do, the solo show, I have parts of it that are intentionally improvised. I have parts of the show that I have no idea how it will look like before the show, because I'm dependent on what happens during the show. It's
Hmm.
improvised on purpose, and I love it. It's the thing that it kind of keeps me on my toes. It involves the audience, so it depends, but yeah.
Are you superstitious?
No, I know that theater folks have their,
Mm,
thing, but it's just like, I guess I don't know if you could ask that about even athletes. I don't
right.
think they would say they're superstitious, but they have their special boxers that they
Yeah,
wear. They have,
absolutely.
like, it's not a superstition, but so I don't think it's a superstition, but it's like your ritual, your little ritual. It's like, I this is my thing. I do it. It's like kind of like my, stretching or my exercise or my thing. It's part of my thing. I do it. So everyone has their thing.
Sure, and not to mention the Scottish play by name in the theater,
Yes.
and, I always hear these old kind of acting English stories from some of those old English greats, and just one particular story, Peter O'Toole. I remember somebody says he was doing a small production of something, and he came out before the play and said, the part of so and so will not be played by her; it'll be played by my wife. And somebody from the crowd says, "She's an expletive," and
Oh no.
Peter O'Toole says, "Nevertheless." So, so, the common you always hear these great stories because they're just
That's
struggling so hard.
perfect.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah.
And they're English, and I don't know where I don't know, was Shakespeare the origin of acting? I don't is that
No, no, no. I mean, this is, acting goes back to caveman times, and
mm,
official theater is Greek times.
right,
But yeah, it's
Greeks.
many, many years. The whole core of theater is just a story. It's telling a story. It's having people come together to listen to a story that someone's telling, and then what and what we know today is just how are we telling this
Mm,
story. That's what changed and developed, and that's what makes it interesting. And you see that also, the cool part is that you can see one story told in so many different ways, which is amazing. So it also goes to show, creativity of people, and what we can do.
do you consider yourself a disciplined person, Meirav?
I think I'm a bit of both. I think you have to be a bit of both.
Because it seems to me to write a play, I mean, there's just so much structure, and there's so much iteration, and there's so much
Yeah.
I mean, it took you a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. A year being because I wasn't working on it every day all day, because I had other things that
Of
I was
course.
working on, and other stuff going on. But yeah, generally a year from the point that from that night, which I didn't start on it the next day, but from that night until the official premiere was about a year. Yeah.
Do people in theater, are they generally disciplined people? Do you think?
I think listen, it's kind of like it's funny to use, some terms are funny to be used,
Yeah.
because when you're very passionate about something, it discipline is irrelevant.
Mm.
When you're very passionate, it's going to happen. It's going to happen because you want it so bad. And so if you want something bad enough, it's going to happen. Call it discipline. Okay. Call it, I don't know, extreme obsession, whatever, like it is what it is. But I think the root of it, and for theater people in general, it's passion. It's the love of the art. So let's just get the art out there. Let's create. Let's do it,
Mm.
because there is some sort of it's not even an end point, but that product, that thing, that at the end of the day, when you're with an audience, and I don't know if you go often or if you've been to a live show, but that energy there is just indescribable. There's something on both sides of the stage, the energy from the audience and the energy of
Mm.
people that feel it on stage from the audience. It's something that can't be explained, and can't be duplicated, and can't be replicated, because even on shows just like on Broadway, where they do like shows every night, it's not going to be the same show. Even if it's the same scripted show that they rehearsed, backwards and forwards, it's still a bit different. And that's the beauty of it. So it's a great thing.
So when you create your show like this, you create a piece of art or a body of art, is it your concern what people interpret it as?
Um, it depends. I mean, certainly people who create want to have their, they want to have the people understand, or they want to be understood. But I think mainly they want to be expressed.
Mm,
And the way that it's interpreted is not in our control
right.
anymore because it's out there. So, if someone interprets something as something else, let it be. If it's misconstrued, or if it's totally nowadays, when we're at the age of mass commenting and
Polarization.
horrible trolling, then
Yeah.
it's not great. But I think you know at the end of the day, it's the interpretation. That's the beauty of art. Everyone can interpret it a bit differently. There's I think it was Robert Frost. There was a famous poem that one of his famous poems, when he was still alive, someone came up to him and said, or I think he was at a forum, or he heard a forum of people. Um, they were talking about his poem. They're like, his poem is this and this, and it stands for this and this, and they, yeah, you're right, because this and that word and this, and then he was like, well, it's just a poem about
Yeah.
apples.
Yeah.
It's like, so it could, but it's great that some people can interpret it as more than that, or something else than that. It's kind of the beauty is the eye of the beholder type of thing.
Yeah, and it's such a slippery slope. I remember the movie Imagine with John Lennon, and somebody had broken into his house and started asking him about some of his lyrics, and John was like, "We were just trying to get something that rhymed with this." I
Yeah,
it's we're just, just musicians, and while
yeah,
we want to help and we want to put out good art, some we can't we how you interpret it's going to be completely up to you, and
right,
I think it's where we kind of get in trouble, where we say, well, this artist stands for this because they said this in their art, or they painted
yeah,
this, or they expressed this in a, in an acting role. And
yeah,
it's really tough. It's really tough right there because art is in the eye of the beholder. And when I
yeah,
go to museums and I look, here's my problem with a museum is that it seems to me there's like 500 concerts going on at the same time.
yeah,
I kind of get involved with one, and I kind of look at it and I just let it come to me, and then I go to another, and okay, I got to start all over again. And
yeah,
I think it's similar in playwriting and in acting and all forms of art.
yeah.
What motivates you?
Um, wow, a lot of things. A lot of things. I think, maybe at the beginning it was because it was fun. So I was motivated to just enjoy what I'm doing. Um, and then it was, that very first time I got a laugh and I was like, oh my God, I can make other people happy. That's what I want to do.
Mm,
And then it was, like, um, my husband, my daughter, making them laugh. It's like, I love it. If I think the main thing now, I know if I can make other people happy in some way, or think about something in some way, that motivates me a lot.
mm.
I have a lot of fun when I'm up there, doing what I'm doing. I really enjoy it, but it's just such a perk to know that it's beyond that, that it can, bring joy to someone who's having a rough time, or a bad day, or about to fall asleep, or whatever it is, and they have this thing and they enjoy it. It's everything.
Oh, that's nice. That's really, really nice. Well said, Marab. And how do you define success?
I think success is knowing that you have learned, have tried, and maybe even set out to what you were going to do. Even though now that I'm saying it sounds kind of fluffy, but I think the main thing is learning. I think if we can learn from things we do, that is success, because
Hmm.
I think the point of everything is to learn, to understand, to, improve or,
Grow.
show others. Yeah.
Yeah, so many times people have kind of these short-term definitions of success. But if you just continue to grow, there's no end. And
Yeah.
yeah, just
Yeah. And the other terms of success that I think we were unfortunately conditioned to understand what
mm,
is success, which is like titles and, degrees and money and, all those things. Those at the end of the day aren't going to be worth as much as your own personal, joy, growth, learning, knowledge, what you were able to share. So I think that success is, I mean, that's going to be a different definition for each person, but I do think at the root of it, that's probably it, is what were you able to learn.
mm. Some may define it as being on top of a call sheet.
And what's that?
Some may define success as being on top of a call sheet, right? In the right in
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Getting all the
uh,
roles, getting all the awards, getting all
right.
the, whatever it is. But those things are not really, dependent on you as much, and they're not
Hmm.
in your control, and uh your they're not as validating, I think. At the end of it, I think what's more validating is knowing, oh, okay, I did something, I did something that I learned from. I did something good. I did something to help someone. I did,
Hmm.
so
Yeah, they may not necessarily be based on merit.
right.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. Well, Meirav Zur, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. I creative types like yourself in theater. Just I play a little guitar. I love art. My daughter's in art. I love it. I'm just not. I don't feel that I'm that artful. But so I have so many questions, and I love it, and I love to soak it in. How can we get in touch with you?
I think probably the easiest would either be going to my website,
Yes.
which is www.meiravzur.com. It's MEIRAVZUR.com. And then on there, or you can go to all my social media. I'm most active on the social media that I created for my solo show. So it's Inconceivable Show in one word. That's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and YouTube has a lot of great clips of your show
And
too, but
YouTube,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yep.
We'll put all those in the show links. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
today. I
you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me.
It was a real pleasure, and maybe one day we'll all get together and have a cup of coffee face to face.
Yes, definitely. We'll get on stage together.
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? Oh, I just shudder to think. Uh, thank you so much. You be well. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.